And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live. Let me make sure this thing is working. Great, awesome. Welcome everyone. Today we are looking at Rachmaninoff Prelude in C sharp minor, the Opus 3 number 2 piece. That is what this stream is especially about today. But I feel kind of weird starting this stream actually without Bach, since we've been doing that for the last month. So I'm just going to play the C major Prelude and Fugue while waiting for people to connect, and we'll get right into the Rachmaninoff after. So here we go. Bach Prelude and Fugue in C major. You've probably heard the Prelude a million times. Here it is, 1,000,001, and then the Fugue. There we go. Our Bach is done. We can get into rock. Rachmaninoff. Good morning, everyone. Hi to everyone who's connected. Gucci Tails, Tijuana Border Jumper. You're inspired by J.S. Bach. Great. Wonderful. I love the crying emojis. It wasn't you who said you find his music makes you anxious? David Jeffries, hi. You are such a sublime, focused, dedicated musician. Thank you, David. Very inspiring. I wish that one day you could do a tutorial on Rêverie by Debussy. Aha, that's a very good piece. Yeah, we can definitely do. Maybe we'll even do that on a live one. I'm not sure what we're going to do next week, but that might be very interesting. Okay, octave passages. Hi, Hephaestus. Heroic Polonaise. Yeah, that's very tough. Okay, we might get into that sometime. I might have talked about it a little bit in the Heroic Polonaise videos. But yeah, octaves can be exhausting. You have to find a way of playing using the minimal movement possible. Tom T. Hi, Tom T. Thanks. Nice shirt. I'm glad you like it, man. It wasn't you who said that. Okay. All right, but let's get right into this Rachmaninoff because that's especially what this video is about. So let's start this prelude. Okay. Now, this piece is actually it's a set of, I believe, 5 or 6 other pieces. That's not usually something we think about. It's kind of like a standalone prelude, but it was actually part of other pieces, and from the very first performance, it was, you know, it gained popularity very quickly, and the opening octaves seem to echo the sound of the bells of the Kremlin. So let's start out with these octaves here. There's no need to be tense while playing this. You know, the kind of tightness in the arms doesn't actually get more sound than just using the weight, letting the weight fall on the keys, maybe with some kind of absorption or control at the attack, but it's pretty loud. So do exercises with your arms just to let the arms drop and feel, you know, that can be excessive loud. It's probably cracking in the microphone, right? So that's even too much. And there's zero tension in that kind of attack. So go more with the relaxed weight, which is heavy enough. Even if you have really skinny arms, your arms are pretty heavy. You'd be surprised the kind of sound you can get. So I like to say it's a bit of a combination between just, you know, dropping, I mean, try to do nothing. This is going to be a little loud. And controlling the attack a little bit so that in the moment where there's a contact with the note, there's a little cushion, a little trampoline, a little something, so you don't just fall completely down. Often the sound is much better when you use that little cushion. You have a more resonant sound, a more round sound, as opposed to a sound that sometimes you'd have to really experiment with this, but just going all the way into the bottom of the key can make a kind of sound that doesn't travel very much, okay? All right, so that's it for the first 3 chords. Now, triple P. This is one of the challenges. Is to really get that triple P. Always put the chord in your hand before playing. Feel the shape of the chord in your hand when you do this. All right, and then these little octaves, they have staccatos on them, but obviously it's not a yep. You figured that out by now. So the staccato has something to do with the attack. I like to think of these staccatos meaning, for Rachmaninoff, in this case, speed of attack is required on the octaves. So don't play these octaves here like this. There's no speed. There's always some speed, but it's not fast. Give it a bit more of a shum, hum. That's the speed of attack. So, and that can be a challenge to do softly. So hi to everyone who's joining the stream. We're looking at Rachmaninoff Prelude in C sharp minor, opus 3, number 2. If you have questions on this piece, go ahead and ask. I mean, if you have questions on anything, go ahead and ask. That's always cool. We're especially looking at this piece today. So use that speed. It's kind of like, I'm gonna make a little noise while doing this, but I like to think, imagine you're breaking an egg on the edge of a pan. You use a speed to do it. You go shum. So I make the same sound while playing shum. Yum. It's that kind of thing. Then, of course, we have to do it quietly. All right. Now let's look at the whole big phrase here. We have the first fortissimo, ti-da-da. Then we have ti-da, ti-da-da. A second time, or third time rather. So now we can get a little bit more. And this time, C. Sorry, C. A little bit more than the A, G, C. A little bit more, C, B, E. But remaining in a very piano dynamic. That's a challenge. That's a big challenge in this piece, is playing this soft. Now, the third one here, more again on this chord, and then less on here. Just as we had before, more on there. And then same thing here, more on that one, less. And then even more, E, D, G. Let's say now we're at a fake mezzo forte. There's a little sforzando on that G sharp as well. That's like let's make a fake mezzo forte. So all this should build up, okay? I'm just gonna play through this part. What we want to hear after those first three fortissimo octaves is triple P pianissimo with a little bit of speed to give it that kind of excitement and tension. Something is going on. Not everything is okay here. And then a little bit more on the T, da, da, and then more on these, and even more here. Da, so basically, something of a crescendo from bar 3, 4, 5, 6 to 7. From bar 3 to 7. Let's hear that. Here. A little more here. Maybe it was a little bit much by the end, yeah? So that's the idea. When you get to these things like this, the C, you can often, when you want a little bit more sound, since you have three notes, the same notes, C in three places, pick one note to be a little more. In this case, I like the one with the right hand. See how this is, and this is still triple P. That makes a very interesting sound. Okay, now all of the chords should most likely be more on the middle one and less on the last one. If you have big hands, big enough hands to do octaves with 1/4, then you can do that sort of thing, 5, 4, right? Okay, let's go on. So, should keep the chat open here. There we go. All right. We got a bunch of things here. This is called Bell's piece. Rachmaninoff hates it because everyone kept asking for encore. Oh yeah, I didn't know that. Really? Rachmaninoff, he hated it because people always wanted him to play it over and over? I never heard that. That's really funny. Why is this prelude so easy to memorize while others are much more difficult that I give up? Well, maybe it's a little repetitive. I think compared to the other preludes, it's a little more simple in a way. You know, it has its complexities. The chords are a little hard to memorize in the end. You know, when you have these the things with the two hands. So yeah, Bill, if you can play it through by heart and you don't have much memory problems, then congratulations. That's good. That's a good question. I don't know why it's easier. I think it's a lot less dense in a way. I know that sounds strange because this seems like a very dense piece, but there's a lot of preludes that are much more simple. I don't know, which ones were you thinking of? In general, do pianists think in notes? Let's say, if I say G major, do you go G, B, D? Yeah, I think so. It depends how visual. Hi, Boran. Hey, cool. It depends how visual you are. Some people who are more visual, when you say like G major, they'll see the chord on the piano. You know, obviously a violinist must see something different if they don't spend much time at the piano. So it depends on the person. Okay, let's go from here. Now we said we get to something of a mezzo forte here, so just a little bit more sound. So you can come back down to those triple Ps. And there's a variety of ways of playing this, yeah? A lot of people put a very different rubato here than what we've had before, which is kind of straight, right? No one's gonna go. It's too slow. So you can move it here, that's natural, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2. But try to finish back at the same tempo here, and 1. So whatever rubato you do in that section, come back to the normal tempo again. Do we start in tempo a little? Yeah, that's another idea. Since that part has more rubato, you start and finish basically in tempo and speed up more in the middle. That's not a bad way to do that. So, always more on these ones. So you gotta reach it. Right? Okay, in this video, I'm gonna get a little bit into more physical technique, so how to connect the body more, okay? When you have something like this with chords, this C sharp, we're gonna have this a lot later in the piece. Change camera here. We want not just the arms. Think, okay, we're going to where we're sitting. Look at where I'm sitting. Oh, this time I won't move, okay? All right, that's one way of doing it. You're relying on the arms to do this, but you're a little stuck because you're stuck on your sit bones, right? So I encourage you as much as you can to find your connection with your sit bones. Move on your seat. Some people naturally have this. Others just kind of maybe slouch and get a little stuck and lazy right here. So look at this. Now we activate the, let's say, I say the sit bones, but it's not the sit bones, right? It's the waist, the abdominals, and all kinds of muscles that are working here. But see how this has become connected now? You can do this exercise as well, where you keep this, okay? This is really, really, really crucial in the end of this piece, when you have things like, at the very end, we have things like this. I'm sorry, where am I here? This is E major. You have a better connection and tension in the interval between this note, or chord rather, and this one. If you connect it like this, rather than just like that, okay? That's a really big thing to get into. So, okay, let's go on now. bottom of the page, if you're using the same John Preston IMSLP edition that I am. Well, here we go again. So once again, we finished in tempo again with that little rubato section. Every time you have that back in tempo. Now here we have this twice, and you can voice different notes. So instead of triple P is maybe a bit much, you could bring out, let's say, the thumb in the right hand. That sound a little more spooky maybe. It sounds completely different, but it's the same chords. And now if you want also, you could do it instead of the thumb in the right hand, you could bring out the left hand here. I really like that for the last one. So you have the G sharp, B, A. All right. And we're going to get into the middle section of this piece now, this A-B-A structure piece. I like that dynamics control. Okay, the other easy piece is to memorize a Chopin Revolutionary Etude and the Ocean Etude. I have so much trouble memorizing others. Yeah, Revolutionary Etude. You know, sometimes pieces that are like technically difficult tend to be easier to memorize because you spend so much time practicing again, like technically really challenging parts. And I found a lot that sometimes I'd have the most memory lapses in like slow movements and things like that, things that I underestimated the difficulty or just didn't spend as much time on. So yeah, I can't say exactly why, Bill, but you know, if ever we look at some of those pieces together, sometimes there's a line, you know, like a bass line or a middle line that's chromatic or just consecutive notes, and you can follow that line and it helps the memory a lot. Sometimes little things like that fix memory problems. Maybe they're just easier to follow in those pieces. Could be. All right, the Agitato section, the middle section of this prelude. The most fun, right? So a lot of interesting things here. We're kind of growing in a long crescendo, a couple of diminuendos in between, so that has to be controlled. Rachmaninoff writes mezzo forte. Think of mezzo forte as a melody. Rubato section's not easy to master. Yeah, absolutely. So these are rather sonorous, let's say, mezzo forte, but all this, it's quite piano, right? Otherwise you have this. So we want instead, right? Now, okay, what kind of technique is this? Wheel, of course. So if you apply the wheel right, you should have all those melodic notes in front. That's just like the dedication piece by Granados that we just looked at, right? I don't know if I've uploaded that one yet. So here we go. Make sure you pedal every note. So here we're going to lose that low C at some point in this bar because it's too much. We just can't take it unless you want to put the middle pedal down. But it also sounds really blurry, right? So what I do is play the octave, change this note for a 5, and then go on. So what's important with that low C actually is that we have it at the beginning of the section, right? After that, it doesn't matter. You don't mind that that note's missing, right? All right. if you want to make things feel agitated, you can always accelerate a little to the middle of the bar. That might be a little bit much for the very beginning of this. See how agitated that feels. Now I love this. You don't have to stick it out, you probably shouldn't, but just know it's there. That's so nice. And this, of course, more on that A, and then resolve it back on the G. Maybe you do more or less, or swell to the middle. I think I like that even more. It shows a bigger thing. In the first two bars as well, more on the middle of the bar, and then less here. You could also go, you could do more at the beginning. Some people play it that way too. That's nice as well. What's important is you find a way to shape it so you don't have but or however you like to shape it, but you have some strategy somewhere, and then try to pick the one that's the most coherent structurally, right? What if you did shape it over two bars? You know, just ideas. So here, that's a more expressive part, and here's the tail, the end of the thing. That has to come back down. Sometimes it's hard to get the sound out of the small notes. We just hear instead of. So you might have to pay a little attention to that. Now we're going to start to crescendo a little bit more, but not too much yet. So see, whenever you have that, you can do this. Let's say you build up a little sound. It starts to get loud. Start softer again. Right? So you have room to move. There's another low point right there, but we're building very quickly to fortissimo. So these, I think, have to be, again, more, less, etc. Unless you do more to here, that's also possible. Two possibilities. Either 2x2, which it looks like he's writing it that way, or one bar at a time. I would go like this. Okay, get a little carried away here, so that's probably the best way to do this. Take that C on the last triplet note in the right hand. So you have, that's a good way to do it. I'm not sure how else you would do. That's a little dangerous. But it could work if you don't play it too fast and you're good at jumping that. But a lot of times, you know, it's better to be a little bit safe and place things a little bit. You don't want to have this problem where, okay, I've seen this happen many times. People tend to get, as this music gets more and more loud and agitated, people get tighter and tense and more tense. That's something you have to watch out. That's probably one of the most reoccurring problems I see in this piece with students, is getting too tense as the music gets tense, right? You have to stay a little relaxed enough to be able to hit the right notes. Because when you get too tight, you end up doing something like, you know, making mistakes like that. So keep a little bit of, always, you can play louder. That's a little excessive. It's fast and it's loud, but it's relaxed. So I just want to show that that's possible. Okay, so here we have accents on the first beat. It's here. I would do less now. We'll have that diminuendo. Probably won't get that soft. This one, I would do a little less. Okay, we just had it fortissimo. So this one a little less because we're building up. Keep the accents in both hands. Otherwise, you end up doing this. And you get confused, right? So keep it. Keep your triplets in there, okay? For me, smaller part, less is better, more agitated. Yeah, Rachmaninoff was always agitated when he had to play this piece. That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So usually what happens is people forget to do the accents in the left hand. Also, when you get here, of course, a variety of playing. Is there a recording of Rachmaninoff playing this? If there is, I haven't heard it actually. I'd be curious. I don't think there is one. I have the impression that the music looks like it's supposed to be played something like this. But Rachmaninoff would do something like this. Just keep going through it without stopping. He does that a lot in recordings if you listen to them. But if not, you could take a little bit of time at the beginning of that descent here. So it starts a little more powerfully, right? That's the idea with this. Another thing I like to do here, of course, make sure you pedal well. Pedal, 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 pedal. Pedal every accent, every beat, basically. And then at some point, if you like this, you could get a little dry at some point towards the end. Remove the pedal so you have... And then bring it back towards the end. That can make a really nice effect. So let me try to do this. Pedal off here. Back on. Something like that. Again, just like the beginning of the piece, use the weights. And speed as well. Okay, here's the hard part. Now more on this one. That's where, again, it's really important to be able to, what's the chord again? Use this. Find that alignment from where you're sitting. Be able to move this, activate this thing. This is one of my favorite exercises. Push here or here with the fists so that you get the knees up and elongate. It feels like you're pushing outwards here and pushing in the back with the tailbone, and that lengthens the spine. And then you have this connection of going forward, but the movement is starting from the waist, really. You know, I like to think that it's starting from the sit bones. You know, there's muscles involved here, but that might be an easy way of thinking about it, that the sit bones are in charge here. So these kind of exercises are great. So you can get this kind of versus, eventually it will feel so unnatural to do something like that. If you get used to, what's the chord? E? Here we go. E, yes. Right? And then, of course, which one is that? Sorry. It's so easy to get lost in these four staves. A little bit more on this one. Okay, so the idea here is we have a rhythm kind of getting wider and wider. Just like in the beginning, we had this triple P, and we did a little crescendo, and we did more of these ta-dee-dum, ta, a little bit more and more. We're going to do that here, but widen as well. We widened in the beginning as well. So this can be pretty tempo. A, G, C sharp. A, G, C sharp. Starting to widen. Sorry, I didn't prepare for this. E, and now widen even more. So not just expanding in sound, but stretching it more and more. So these go from D and 2, this is A. D and 2 and C. And then D and 2 and 1 to B and E and D and G sharp. Okay, that one's a little tricky. Same rubato. Or you can go. But usually, this always sounds better. If you can handle it. There is, but he hated to play it because the audience asked for it encore. Can you blame him? There's so many amazing and pieces of Prelude's probably most popular. Yeah, I can imagine that. I mean, I think any pianist, even their favorite pieces, you get tired of playing, playing them over and over. It makes you anxious enough to run out of the building. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it's a powerful piece, right? And it is agitated, right? But it's also very beautiful. Any tips on having a powerful sound while not sounding too harsh? Okay, this is a good question for this piece. Hi, Daniel. Sometimes I sound like I'm just bashing the piano while playing this prelude. Okay, so it does. I mean, it's funny how just like one little mistake in those chords makes it sound like terrible, right? So make sure you have the right chords. Also, if you pedal wrong, if you're like mixing chords or something and there's too much pedal, that also makes it sound terrible because it's even louder. And if the chords aren't crystal clear, then it's not gonna sound good. You also have a shape in the chords, right? As we said in the beginning, this one is more and this one is less. So even though it's triple P, triple F, pesante, you can shape the chords. You don't have to do them all the same. See, there's a little shape there. It's kind of subtle, but that also makes a difference. I think really when things sound like it's bashing on the piano, most of the time there's three problems. Number one is pedal. There's too much pedal. Number two, there's wrong notes in the chords. You have like 8 notes between the two hands. So it's easy to get just one wrong. The chord isn't clear and it sounds awful. Number 3 is, what was number 3? Gee, I forget. Oh, being too tense. Did I say that? Being too tense, too much pedal, and the wrong notes. If those 3 things are there, pretty much that problem is solved. The other thing you can try is sometimes, don't always practice this loud, especially when you're in your earlier stages with it. You can practice like that. Right? Okay, we're at this. Here's the last one, okay? So we had a sforzando with 4 Fs, right? Again, the last one, we're gonna stretch here, use the body, use the waist, move from the sit bones to get. And then this last one, sorry. I have a problem with this note. It's a little wider again. Now, the tendency is to go like this. But this is a big problem. Because we're not even at mezzo forte yet, which is supposed to be here. And we have that long diminuendo at the end. So keep a little bit of sound here. When you get to here, this is still forte. I really like to sing that one there. One thing I didn't mention also, sometimes you can do this. Stick out the thumb in the left hand. I like to do that in the beginning when you have you can stick out the thumb, voice the chord a little bit differently, so it doesn't sound like the same thing we've been hearing over and over again. So keep it healthy forte here with a diminuendo. 2, 3. So see, we have some sound to work with here. A little different rubato you could do. Maybe a little less fast. Taking a little time there if you like. But again, not too soft on this. So you can go less and less and arrive at quite resonant. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to have, maybe that's already too soft. We want to have a little juice here for our F major 7, or F7, or F sharp 7, sorry. And then this one even less. So that's the thing. If you start like this, you can't do that. You can't go down. We need this one, and then less, but we're not at the end yet. And finally, so we progressively get less and less. Give yourself a little bit of room to come down. And then this one, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. I like it that way. I like when that last 8th note has a little like last breath to it, you know? And then the last chord is triple P. So it would sound something like this. Let's try to get a progressive diminuendo here with enough sound in the beginning. More than I wanted to do on that chord. That's the challenge of it, but something more like just like a last breath, the last breath before death. Just a little something like that. All right. Any thought on breathing? There we go. We're talking about breath. Yeah, breathing. That's true. I don't talk about breathing very much in the videos. When I teach people how to breathe who aren't breathing, it's always really awkward for them in the beginning. And it's funny, I remember the same thing too. I remember teachers telling me, oh, breathe. And you're like, what do you mean? While you're playing. But eventually it becomes like singing. You have to kind of sing everything you play, and you have to take breaths. The breath is like a pickup to an attack, and it changes the way you attack something, eventually it becomes very unconscious. It's not something I think about. I would breathe between those chords for sure. Pure stress relief. Absolutely, this is pure stress relief. Yeah, you listen to this, maybe for some people, yeah. There we go. There we have it. The way you strike the piano is not to forcefully slam the key, but use weight. Yeah, that's a very important thing. There's never a need to slam a key. I don't know, never. Maybe in some Prokofiev thing, there's like some specific place where maybe you go for that kind of violent sound, but I had a teacher who used to say that all the time. He'd say, "Mais pas violent, c'est trop violent. It's too violent." There's not really a way. I like the way you put it. You use the weight. It's always enough, and then it's just a question of feeling the tension. You feel the music, but this is still loose, right? And the fingers are firm enough. You keep the fingers firm so you have the powerful sound, but you in your arms, you're not tense. You can be tense in your abdomen, in your stomach. That's often a good place to feel tension, because sometimes you need to feel the tension in the music in order for it to have that kind of magnetic thing. But don't put it in your arms. That doesn't help you. It's a good way to hurt yourself, actually. I think the most important thing for clear sound in chords is to voice chord top notes. Okay, yeah, you can voice the chords. Yeah, I didn't mention that as well, talking about how to not get chords to sound really loud. You can voice them. But, people get a little obsessed with this. Sometimes you voice the top, but it's another problem that I see again and again and again with so many students, is that they voice the top of every chord and they forget about all the richness inside. And it's not always the top, okay? It's true that every chord should be voiced in a certain way. I think at this point, honestly, that's not really, but we don't want this. That sounds terrible, right? We want to, especially the middle of the chords are important. A great example of this is, how's it go? One of my favorite pieces in the world. See how the middle of the chord makes the chord sound so great, right? Not just. It's almost a shame we're missing that. So there's something to it in the middle of the chords. Now, another great example of this is in the Liszt Sonata when you have. You don't play everything loud, so just maybe the melody, and then you have almost like a piano. So you make a whole orchestra out of everything that's going on, and some instruments are more important, right? This is like maybe, you know, you have trumpets playing the melody, and maybe different instruments, you know, it could be chords, whatever, you know, this kind of thing. Shouldn't be. That's when it sounds horrible. So that's a good example for what you're saying. Voice this. And a couple of other notes like the B here to get the 6 out of the D major chord. And sometimes crescendoing with the accompaniment parts. Again, the E here, that's the 9. And then it gets loud. So you have that. And then after this massive chord, this stays soft. It's kind of like something that's helping the chord sing on, sustain. So I love that piece. We should do a bunch of live sessions on Liszt Sonata, guys. Who's playing Liszt Sonata? Okay, so I think that covers it. Here we go. We've done this Rachmaninoff C# minor prelude with a little Bach prelude and fugue in the beginning of this. I hope that helps. Definitely gonna upload that up. Stay tuned, guys. There's a live concert tomorrow. I'm playing with one of my groups, the Trio Fibonacci. We have a live streamed concert. You can find it on the Trio Fibonacci, Fibon. Jeez, I can't spell right now. Fibonacci, 2 C's. Trio Fibonacci YouTube page, streaming tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're playing a few things that we've played, a little bit of minimalist music from our last season, and a bunch of excerpts from our upcoming season as well. We're going to play a slow movement of the Mendelssohn First Trio, the Ravel, 4th movement of the Ravel Trio, which we will be playing in September, I believe, and also some of the variations from the Tchaikovsky Trio, which we'll be playing in December. So this is kind of a fun opportunity for me, I mean, that I can share this with you guys, because we're usually playing physically live in the city, and we don't usually live stream our shows, so that might be changing a little bit. So you can tune in there. We're going to be live again next week at the same time, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, Friday. If you like the video, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. I can't believe Brahms fell asleep when Liszt performed the sonata for the first time. I love these stories about the sonata. Brahms falling asleep. And of course, Liszt, he wrote it for Robert Schumann, who Brahms was, you know, often close to at the time, but Robert never heard it. He was already in asylum at the time. But Brahms was the one who played it for Clara. And you can imagine Brahms playing the piece, and I don't know how much he really liked Liszt's music. You know, he heard him play it and fell asleep. This is like a famous story. He was really young at the time. It's funny how we laugh about it, but a lot of, you know, young musicians, myself included, when we were like 18, 19, 20, 21, going to, you know, band camp in the summer and master classes, we were often, you know, like, you know, partying at night, and then we'd wake up in the morning and we'd go like watch someone teach, and we'd often be dozing off. Some of us would be falling asleep. So, but yeah, Brahms falling asleep and then playing it for Clara, who absolutely despised the piece. You know, like she says a bunch of things about it that it's so horrible. Like it sounded terrifying, I think she said. So, you know, you can always imagine how that was played. All right, guys, so that's it. Stay tuned. Happy practicing. See you in the next video. Got a bunch of videos coming up this week, mostly, actually all from the RCM, some from, you know, a bunch of different books. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next week, next Friday, live. And take care. Over.